Welcome to In Your Defense, Galveston and Beyond.
Welcome to In Your Defense, Galveston and Beyond with Mark Diaz and John Clements. Mark is a passionate criminal defense attorney with over 25 years of experience defending the rights of Texans. And together we're excited to discuss all things criminal defense law. So Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to talk about this because I feel like this is a subject that no one wants to talk about, but it's extremely important to know about what to do, for instance, after an arrest. And so that's the podcast today, what to do after an arrest. Your first 72 hours matter. So Mark, let's dig in. After someone is arrested in Texas, what is the first thing they should do?
Bond out. Get out of jail. Yeah, so if you've already gotten out of jail, then the next thing to do is immediately start looking for a lawyer.
So what does that look like to look for a lawyer? Like what kind of, who am I looking for if I'm in that situation? Like explain to me the kind of lawyer I should get.
So the way I tell people is, and a lot of people don't do this, but the way I tell people is you should go visit several lawyers in their office, sit down with them, and just get a feeling for who you feel like you could work best with, right? Because the implications could affect the rest of your life, especially depending upon the level of charge that we're talking about. And so if you don't have confidence in the person that you've hired, you're never going to feel good about it. At the same time, let's face it, there are some types of personalities that don't work well together. And you also want to know how accessible is the person you hire. You know, these types of things. How hard was it for you to get an appointment to see them? You know, just all the normal things, because depending upon your level of experience with the criminal justice system, you know, this could be one of the biggest things you have going on in your life right now. And you certainly don't want to be worried about what's my lawyer doing. I can't get a hold of my lawyer. Every time I call, they say he's not there. You know, those types of things. That's for me, right? That's what I would want. Everyone's a little different.
Yeah, but I appreciate you bringing in that, I don't know if it's right where we made that partnership aspect. Like you have to be able to get along with this person. And I would assume you have to be able to have that trust where you can tell your attorney the truth of what actually happened. I'm guessing that's an important part of the process.
It's an extremely important part of the process because if there are things you leave out, I could get stuck with it, right? And that's going to hurt me when I'm trying to defend you. So yes, obviously being truthful is extremely important so that I don't get blindsided in trying to present your defense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and as important as it is to really be honest and truthful and forthcoming with your attorney, talk to me about the other side of the equation. When let's say you've just been arrested, how important is it for you to remain silent at that point, even if you think you can explain the situation?
So you can't. It's extremely important to remain silent. At this point, everything that you're saying is going to be used against you. And if you think you can explain it away, one of the problems there is your explanation is going to be locking me into a defense that may not be the best defense. So the thing is, though, it's important to be respectful in your refusal to talk, right? Because most of the time nowadays, you're going to be on body cam. So if you're acting like a jerk, that's not a good look, right? So it's important to remain silent, but be respectful about it. Don't be a jerk about, I don't have to talk to you and I'm not going to, don't put yourself in that position because then you could get convicted of just being a jerk. If we're in front of the wrong judge or the jury doesn't like it or whatever may happen. But yes, you are not going to talk your way out of it.
Interesting. And then as far as being respectful, is there a way that you might coach someone? Is there a phrase or a sentence that you would encourage them to use to explain that they're not going to speak to the cops, for instance?
It depends on the person. Obviously, I would tell people if I had the opportunity to get to them before to say, listen, I've spoken with a lawyer before, and he told me I should exercise my right to remain silent, and that's what I'm going to do.
I like that. And so again, just to clarify, because I've read a lot of stuff online, and some of the things people say that you should say are disrespectful, quite honestly. And it sounds like that's not a good strategy at all.
It's not, because like I said, the problem is you're going to be on body cam. And so if we're in court and I'm trying to convince the judge to suppress the evidence or suppress your statement or whatever it is, and then when it comes time to show the body cam, you're just a complete jerk. If the judge is sort of on the fence, your attitude and behavior can push the judge one way or the other, right? And so you acting like that it's not going to end up in your favor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an important thing to remember is, yeah, don't be a jerk is pretty good life advice just in general, but I think especially
Right.
right at a time like that. So you mentioned earlier that, once you get out of jail, if you post bond, let's say, the first thing you should do is go find a criminal defense attorney. So why does that timing matter so much? Why wouldn't you want to wait, some period of time? Why would you immediately want to go do that?
Well, okay. So it would depend on the situation, right? And the crime. But let's say the possibility exists that a nearby business or a nearby house had video and that video could help me, right? Well, most places, depending upon your level of security, have a loop of when that video will get recorded back over. So let's say it's on a week loop, right? If I know about it, then I can send out a subpoena to get that video footage before it gets written over. Then we have it if it helps us. That's one small example. But I can come up with, any number of examples in different cases depending upon the type of case it is. In a DWI, once you get arrested, clocks start ticking as far as the amount of time you have to challenge the suspension of your driver's license. There's just a lot of things that may be able to happen up front that I need to get in front of. But if the time has passed, I can't. It's just too late.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I want to go back to what you said. The first thing you said was, the first thing to do if you've been arrested is get out of jail, post bond, get out of there. So let's talk about that because you're in Galveston County in Texas. So what does the booking and bail process look like there?
Once you get arrested, obviously you're going to go to county jail. You'll go through booking, which depending upon the time is going to be several hours, right? Not only depending upon the time, but depending upon how many other people are in processing at the same time as you. So since we're on an island, we're a tourist destination and we have big events, right? Mardi Gras, the biker rally, things like this. Arrests tend to be up during a big event because, we may have 50,000 people show up on the island for an event. So during those times, the booking process will take longer simply because they have more people to book, right? And then depending upon the level of offense, you may have to see a magistrate to get your bond set. Galveston only does that twice a day. It's basically 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. So, if you get arrested at 5 p.m. and you have to be magistrated, you're not going to see a magistrate till 6 a.m. the next morning. Get your bond set, and then if you can afford it, post a cash bond. If not, use a bonding company. But generally speaking, you're looking at several hours in custody. And then the one thing we've kind of touched on, when you're in custody, depending upon the offense, the officers may try to come talk to you and get you to give a statement about your case. Again, it's important to remain silent and not give any statements. This way, they have nothing. Generally, when officers are trying to get a statement from you, it's because they're lacking something, right? If they have you on video committing a crime, they don't really need you to give a statement, right? But if they're hounding you trying to get a statement, that means they're lacking something, which means I have something to work with.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense, and I've never thought about that. Thanks for bringing that up. That's a really good point. And I would assume that the advice earlier of continuing to be respectful throughout your time in custody would still apply.
Yes, it's the same thing here. In every step of the process, there are video cameras at booking everywhere. And it's the same thing. You're going to be on camera. Our magistrate process is on video and recorded with audio. So when you're being magistrated, if you're acting like a fool, it's going to be recorded.
Yeah. And to be clear, being a fool isn't against the law, but it's not going to help you in your court case.
Right. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. It's just not a good look for you when the evidence comes out in court.
Yeah, and I'm sure it doesn't do you any favors either as the attorney trying to defend someone who's maybe chosen some bad choices like that. I am curious to know, you talked about kind of some of the advantages of meeting or getting an attorney as soon as possible. And I just wanted to kind of retouch that base and just ask, how does that help you craft a better defense when you are included in the loop early on?
again, like I said earlier, it's going to change from case to case, because whether it be that I need to try and get video from a private citizen or a business, whether it be that there's a witness that was on scene that the police did not interview, but now I know how to find that person. Maybe you know who the witness was. I can interview that. I can have someone interview that witness in a timely fashion before too much time passes, people disappear, people's memories fade. It's just going to depend on the circumstances of the arrest and what type of case it is. I mean, obviously, we have people that wait until the last minute to hire us. And there are times when that puts them at a disadvantage, because my attitude is, oh, I would have done this.
Yeah, that's not a great sentence to hear when you're about to go into the courtroom. Well, if we would have had time, we would have done this. But yeah, that's not a great start there for sure. So that's definitely, again, just to be clear, so everyone's listening clear, that's something you need to do. If you've been arrested, once you get out, find a lawyer as soon as possible. So that's probably the best advice from this episode. But what about some mistakes you see people making in those first 2-3 days after they get arrested? What do people see? What do people do that you see that's not the right thing to do?
I mean, believe it or not, the biggest mistake I see is people talking. Some people can't help it. They give statements when they shouldn't. They say things they shouldn't. Another big one is, let's say like on family violence cases, generally you're given a protective order that you can't contact the victim, right? Like if it's a husband and wife and the husband gets arrested, he's going to be given a protective order that he can't contact his wife. That means he can't go home, right? Some guys get out of jail, they sign that piece of paper acknowledging that they can't, and then they do it. And then that's a new offense and they go right back to jail. But yeah, the biggest mistake I see is people hurting their own case, usually because they just can't stop talking.
I think we've all met people like that. And this is kind of the natural next question. What about social media? Do you see people getting online on Twitter and Facebook and posting about things that have happened?
Oh, all the time. I have had social media used against my clients in multiple cases. Anything from pictures of themselves with weapons. I once had a guy post a picture of him with a stolen car, just almost anything you can imagine. And people just, they continue to do it. They just can't help themselves, or they don't think about it, or they don't think law enforcement will see it.
Yeah, I have a feeling they will see it though.
Oh, they do. They do.
Well, Mark, this has been so fascinating of a subject to talk about. And we've talked about some of the things that you should do if you've been arrested and how to handle that, get out, contact an attorney. Is there anything else that's important to know for someone who's just been arrested?
Well, again, it's going to depend on your level of experience with the criminal justice system. But one of them, especially people that have just been arrested, a lot of people get arrested. They've never had this happen to them before. They have no experience with the criminal justice system. And their first thought is, something akin to, I've ruined my life. That may not be the case, right? That's what I'm here for. And so a lot of people, I can tell the people when they hire me that are really stressed out about the case, and I tell them, quit worrying about it. Live your life like normal. If your arrest is not going to affect your job, keep going to work, keep doing everything you need to do, and let me worry about the stress. If we get to a point where I need you to stress, I'll let you know. But people a lot of times think they've ruined everything just because they got arrested, and that's not the case. I may make the whole case go away. I may expunge the record of the arrest. Sometime many months down the road from now, no one may ever know this happened. So just, keep calm and hire me.
There you go. That's a really good point too, because I've never been arrested. I would freak out. I would totally freak out. So to know that I have help is just an amazing thing. Mark, it's just been so interesting and helpful to talk with you today. Thanks for coming on the show. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on Defense on the Coast with Texas criminal defense attorney Mark Diaz. To connect with Mark, you can visit texascriminaljustice.com. And with that, please like, subscribe, leave a review, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.